member for Fundy Royal.
Mr. Speaker, exactly 14 months ago, Conservatives stood in this House and warned the government not to ignore Canadians with disabilities and mental health advocates and their very real concerns with the Liberals' medically assisted dying bill. Look where we are now. We've all read the horror stories over the last few months of medically assisted death being administered to people not because they were near death, but because they were vulnerable. Does the Prime Minister see any issues with how medically assisted death is now being misused in Canada?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, respecting the rights and the choice of all Canadians has always been a priority for this government, and we will continue to stand up for Canadians' rights to make choices. At the same time, we need to make sure we're investing sufficiently and partnering with provinces and territories to ensure quality health care for seniors, including with national standards, quality palliative care, things that we're ready to work with the provinces on and invest in. We respect provincial areas of jurisdiction, but we will also always ensure that we're standing up for the fundamental rights of all Canadians.
The honourable member for Fundy Royal.
Mr. Speaker, that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about the lives of vulnerable Canadians, yet the Liberals took months to reconstitute the committee to review this legislation after the Prime Minister put a stop to their work when he called his election. Now we're learning of Canadians who see medically assisted death as an alternative to a lack of health care or a lack of safe housing. When it comes to this tragic misuse of medically assisted death, why does the Prime Minister continue to ignore the pleas of vulnerable Canadians?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, the question of medical assistance in dying has always been a deeply personal one, a deeply important one for all Canadians, and getting the balance right between respecting people's fundamental freedoms to make their own choices about their life and the protection for the most vulnerables has always been the priority of this government. That's why we took a responsible, step-by-step approach on this, continue to be informed by data. Obviously, we've heard extremely concerning stories going on this, and that's why we need to be there to continue to protect the vulnerable, to ensure top quality health care right across the country, including palliative care and senior support.
The honourable member for St. Albert, Edmonton.
Mr. Speaker, there have been several well-documented cases of abuse and non-compliance under the Liberals' MAiD regime. This has drawn rebuke from disabilities rights organizations, a UN Special Rapporteur, and now the RCMP have launched a criminal investigation into the questionable MAiD death of a BC woman who suffered from depression. And until now, not a word of concern from the Prime Minister. So will the Prime Minister admit that Canadians that are vulnerable are falling through the cracks and that there are serious abuses under the MAiD regime?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Beginning of this debate, this government has moved forward with a careful mindset of both upholding Canadians' fundamental rights and protecting the most vulnerable. That's what the Supreme Court decision demanded that we do as a government, and that's what we've moved forward with in a responsible way, incrementally, with massive consultations, with collection of data. We will continue to follow the evidence. We will continue to base ourselves in science. While Conservatives continue to be wrapped up in ideology, we will respect Canadians' choices and protect the most vulnerable.